everyone, it's Rosanna. Today we're going to make tiny cotton gingerbread houses, and some of you kind of requested that we do something Christmassy for the mice, and I haven't yet. This is not specifically for them, although it's the right size for a cotton mouse, and it's the right size for a dollhouse, so these are definitely a nice little accessory for your miniatures. And I hope that I might get to, if I have some ideas for mousy Christmas activities, but I don't know what I will have time to get to before Christmas. And if not before Christmas, we could still do something kind of festive after Christmas for kind of a New Year's crafting activity or something. But anyway, we'll focus on just these tiny little gingerbread houses. I did a little house a couple weeks ago, but it was a very short segment, and we just covered foil on the bottom. And this gingerbread house, the way I like to make them when I have a little more time, is to cover with cardboard, and that way we get some cleaner corners and edges, and it looks more like a real gingerbread house. So I think these are really fun. They are quite simple, and they are quick to come together. So they're great for gifting, making a little batch of them to share. Oh, here's my kitty. Making a little batch or a couple to share with some friends who also enjoy tiny things. So this is going to be a little quicker make long because we're focusing on one smallish thing, and I'm not going to be able to talk all the way through. Some of you might be relieved to hear that because we have people working at the house today, and there's quite a bit of noise, and so there will be some parts that are just kind of music and some captions if it's needed, but hopefully you will get the gist. It's not super complicated, and we'll just probably get going, and hopefully I address everything you need to know in the supply section. The only thing I would say is if I mention the starch solution, I will have that video linked in the description, and you can go there if you haven't heard about the cornstarch mix and see how that's made and kind of hear why I am excited about using that. So I think we're just going to get going. So for materials, it's going to be a little noisy possibly because I have guys working right outside the windows of this room and using equipment, nail guns, and a skid loader. Anyway, so if it gets very noisy, I'll have to start over or pause or something. But we're just working on a little gingerbread house, so I'm going to try with some different things just to see how it turns out. But the main things are some sort of foil. You wouldn't absolutely have to have the foil, but I think it's nice to start with that. And then some sort of pressed cardboard type product. You could also use like a heavier mixed media paper or watercolor paper, just something a little bit thicker that has some decent structure to it. The brown is probably my favorite, but I'm trying with some coated just because I think that not everyone saves all of their boxes and has a bunch of things to choose from. Then for the fiber that we're going to cover with, you can use cotton balls, and I will demonstrate with that. If you have some like other type of cotton batting, you can use that. I'm going to try using one of these little makeup remover pads and see what sort of results I get with that. I even thought perhaps this part that is kind of like has a little texture printed into it or punched into it, that might look interesting as the roof. I don't know if it will work or not, but I thought I would try. Another way to save a little time for the roof is if you have some cotton quilt batting or felt. That way you could skip a little of the kind of cotton sculpting, and then you just need to choose, do you want to use the cornstarch mix? This is cooked cornstarch. I have a video for it. It comes together in less than 5 minutes. Or do you want to use the glue, school glue mix, which is 1 part of your school glue to 4 parts water. You work with them almost the same. It's just that the school glue mix will leave your fingers stickier, and so the cotton will kind of want to stick to your hands more if you're using that. And then you can either use watercolor paint or some acrylic craft paint. I don't know if I don't have the dark brown color that you would need. I do have it here someplace, just not on my table. But you could use acrylic craft paint if you want. Or if you don't have that, you probably, with enough coats of coffee, could get your cotton colored to kind of a golden gingerbready color. Maybe not the very, very dark color, but more of a gold color of gingerbread, which is also, in fact, that's probably closer to what our personal family recipe for gingerbread is. It's not, I use blackstrap molasses, so I get a little darker color than what my aunt used to get when she made them. So anyway, and then of course you just need like scissors and a little bit of masking tape, and then wire for a hanger if you're going to make it an ornament. Oh, and you will need either some acrylic white colored craft paint. It doesn't have to be white, but just whatever sort of white-ish color you prefer, or you could probably do the accents with some sort of a white gel pen. I don't have those, or a white Sharpie, I would think. I don't have those to demonstrate with or to show you, but some of you work with those and you could probably do that. So I think that's everything. Oh, and then if you want some sparkle, you could use glitter or mica flakes or whatever you like for that. So I think that's everything, and we'll get going. Okay, so like I said, there's going to be probably more minimal narration and instruction in this video because there's so much noise that's going on around me that I just think it's going to be hard to focus. So I'm going to give you a little instruction when I can, and then I may have to just, if I just kind of cut off or go back to like now, if I go back to just some music or whatever, you'll know that it's because I had too much competing noise going on. So I'm just shaping a little foil form with kind of a peak for a roof. It doesn't have to be perfect at all, but this is the basic shape that I start with, and now I'm going to turn off. Okay, you don't have to cover with the foil with masking tape, but if you have some little pieces that aren't hanging together very well, I just would secure it a little bit with tape if you need to. You can also use the tape if you didn't get a very nice peak shape with your foil. You can kind of fudge that a little bit or create that with the tape, so you can use your tape to help you get the shape more the way you want to. I did decide I thought I would not have the chance to do voiceover for this because I was hoping I would get it edited before I have. So I do have a quiet house today, so I'm just going to do a little voiceover. The only problem with that for me is that I notice all of my ums and I get really hung up, and I record one and then I delete it. So I'm trying to just go through and not get too crazy with myself about catching all of those. So I'm just sorry. I'm gonna try not to. I'm just gonna try to keep plowing through, even though I'm gonna it up. I'm just attaching the sides. I don't. If you are more painstaking than I am, or just more into things being precise, which is fine and good, then you can kind of measure your sides against each other, and that way they match up really well, and you don't have kind of a cockeyed, lopsided house at the end of it. But I rarely do that. I did kind of try to get these two end sides, and I had it like and you'll see as we go on with this video, I had this little ladybug that really wanted to be involved in the making, so she's going to get much more involved as we go on, and as the houses take shape, she really gets very, very interested in the houses. But I did try to see, I'm doing my first shape over the other one and kind of cutting out, so that, because I knew I had the roof line a little lopsided, which I don't mind, but so I wanted to match that same angle for the other side, just because otherwise you can get your roof can look really, really kooky if they aren't similar kind of angles on each end. So I do kind of recommend sizing them up to each other and making sure they aren't too far off. But as you can see, there's lots of like little spaces, and things aren't perfectly straight. I don't recommend. I think it's nice if you don't have like a big cardboard like piece jutting way past the others. I would trim everything up so that you don't have a piece that's going to make kind of a little rim or a lip someplace, if you know what I mean. So just trim up that way. But if there are little gaps between your cardboard, that shouldn't be any problem to cover over. And then the roof is easiest if you just cut one piece as opposed to two, and fold it in the middle. I'm recommending you use white or natural cardboard if you can. I used a tea box that had a very colorful design on the outside, and I thought, okay, I'll fold it over so that that's the underside. I did have trouble. I mean, I could have completely covered that color if I had kept going with the cotton layers, but I had quite a lot up under there, trying to cover over that color, and still you could see some of it peeking through. And I didn't really want to get any thicker with my cotton because it's such a small thing. So I would recommend if you have a colored box, seeing if you can peel kind of that paper off that is the printed color part, and because you'll have a lot easier time covering over that with the cotton and not having that color show through. So then for the roofs, you don't have to have batting or felt or anything like that. You can just cover with your cotton fiber if that's what you have. The batting or the felt or whatever, or a piece, you could even use a piece of fabric if you wanted to, white fabric. But it's really just to save you a little bit of time, and it gives you a very, very smooth, as if it had been snowed on or something. It just gives you such an even layer. It's harder to do that with the fiber, but I've done them with just fiber over the roof, and it works just fine. These cotton makeup pads worked really well. I thought maybe I could only use it for the top because of the pattern, the circular pattern that is kind of punched into them. But once I started applying the starch and pressing down and really making sure it was firmly attached to the cardboard, that pattern just disappeared, which I kind of wanted to see what it would look like for the roof that way. But it's fine, and that means you can use those makeup pads for kind of anything. I think that pattern just once the fibers get wet and relax, that just kind of disappears. So you could use it for all the walls. You could use it for other cotton sculpture projects. So that's a good thing to know. And when I use that makeup pad, I pull it apart, and there's like a top layer, which is kind of the one that's printed on, and then there's a very thin middle layer of just plain cotton fiber, and then there's a bottom part that has little tiny holes in it, and I didn't end up using that part. And then I'm just doing cotton balls for the walls, and it's a very, very quick to cover, and you don't need to worry about covering completely in that. Like, it's fine if the brown cardboard is showing through, at least if you are painting it as a gingerbread house. If you want it to be a different color, and it's going to be a lighter color, or you're not using acrylic paint, then you'll probably want to do a thicker layer of cotton or 2 layers. But for these, since they're going to be brown anyway, it really doesn't. You just need a thin layer to take the paint, and it's fine if some of the cardboard color is showing through. And then I will just quickly talk about drying. Lots of options. These are small, and if you're using the starch dries faster than the glue mix. So I would think that these could dry within possibly half a day if you set them kind of by a heat source, or where there's a lot of air movement, so by a heating vent or radiator or wood stove. That would speed it up a lot. I think they would definitely be dry overnight, even as it's cold here in the northern hemisphere. They're just small, and the cotton layers aren't thick. So air drying is possible. Well, it's always possible. It's just possible in a shorter amount of time than normal because of the size and the kind of thinness of the cotton layers. And then you can also you can use a toaster oven set on like 200 or 250. Just check after 10 minutes until it just feels dry, or you can set it into an oven that has been heated. Set it into something that's been heated maybe to 300 or 350, and leave it for like 20 minutes and check and see. Maybe it'll take 30 minutes to be really bone dry. Don't leave it with the oven on at that temperature. I recommend 250 or below that, just so that you don't get a lot of browning. I've had it in higher ovens and it gets a little scorchy, but for a gingerbread house that might not be a bad thing. So anyway, that's your drying options, and I will dry this one a little bit and come back. So I'm just showing a little bit more of the process of covering with cotton, because I don't know, some of you maybe will come to this and have never done any sort of cotton sculpting. So I'm just going to explain a tiny bit. It's really as simple as it looks, I think. I'm just putting small bits of fiber over the shape of the house and pressing it in with my brush. With the starch mix that I've just switched to in the last month or so, you can get in there much easier with your fingers and not get stuck to the cotton the way you do with the school glue mix. So this is something you probably could do without a brush, but I'm just used to using a brush to help me, and I just really use it to press those little fibers down until you're getting a very, very smooth, solid shape. And then I just would remind you to take little strips and really line underneath the roof so that there's not kind of a gap there in your cotton. And then I'm showing you painting it wet with coffee because I thought I do like to paint things wet a lot of times, and I wanted to see if this would work with the coffee and painting it wet. Now, I don't recommend that you paint it wet. You could paint it slightly damp, but it is going to bleed. I will show you it bleeds up into the roof because it doesn't dry quickly enough before that coffee starts to make its way up into your roof fibers. So I would say paint it either dry or almost dry for the best results. Otherwise, you're going to have to touch up with white paint on your roof. So don't do what I'm showing you right here. Wait and do the painting when it's dry. So I have added a tiny bit of acrylic paint to the top here, only because the makeup pad that I used is very, very bright white, and I want it to be just a little bit, not quite so, I just don't want it so bright. I want it more of an antique-y white, which I also could have just maybe done a very, very light coffee wash on and had similar effect. Or if you're going to cover it with a bunch of glitter or mica anyway, it maybe wouldn't have mattered that much. But I went ahead and just brushed. I always use acrylic paint quite watery, more like half water and half acrylic, or maybe even a higher water ratio than that. I just really get my brush, I dip it in the water, and then dip it in the paint. And you can see these come together quite quickly. And then I'll try to figure out some simple ways to do the kind of what would be the icing details, because on something this small and on the cotton fiber, it's not the easiest thing to paint with much precision. So I'm gonna experiment with a few things and see what I think would work best for a lot. Okay, I don't think I can paint with sound on, unfortunately, but I wanted to show you that I have a potential resident here. She's just checking it out, checking that the roof is sound. Now, I'm trying to figure out a simple way to add a little bit of design or detail in a way that's doable. This I did with just a toothpick. I don't know that it took a little time, even though it doesn't look that impressive. And my paint doesn't always show up super well. So I don't know, I'm going to try some other things. But I'm trying to figure out what can you do without a ton of effort, and have it, you want the impression of a little bit of that icing detail, but it is just quite hard at this scale and on something that isn't as smooth as like regular paper or paper clay or something, because it is fiber, and so it's a little bit bumpier surface, and it doesn't absorb or not absorb, is it? You know what I mean? Some places the paint is going to go in a little bit more, and other places it's going to sit on the surface. So it's just not it's not a, I don't know, homogeneous surface where you can know exactly what to expect everywhere. So one idea I had was to kind of go backwards and just do a mostly white door, and leave either a heart or a circle brown in the, for a little window type portion. And that way you have kind of an accent here, or something set off against the brown. I think that's kind of working. And I have also added in my tube of paint over here, I have watered it down quite a bit, because I was finding that with the paint a little thicker, it actually wasn't taking into the fiber as well. So I'm wanting it a little more liquid, and that seems to be working. But I said I was going to leave a circle, but I think I might just leave it like that. And I think that is a little bit more, it's more noticeable that way, or more, there's more contrast, I should say, against a larger block of white against the darker brown background. And then up here, I don't know, maybe I can just do, I'm trying to think, I could do 4 little, well, let's just do this. That'll work. And then here maybe we could do more of a folky flower shape. I'll try to. I don't know if it will look like that when I'm done. Maybe it should be more of a, so I've even got a little fiber here off the roof that is interfering a little bit with what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I'm turning this more into a heart up here. Maybe it looks like kind of 2 hearts. I don't know. And maybe it's not important if it's completely recognizable, as long as it provides a little contrast. I don't know if that's bad. Okay. Well, that's what I did on that side. Now, I think I'm going to turn it off, because I know that I do have a lot of competing noises, and you can just watch while I do the other sides, and we'll see what we end up with on this one. Okay, so that's this one. I actually think the best part of it is the back, maybe. I don't think it's bad. I wanted to show you this one. I started out painting the brown part wet, or the part that isn't supposed to be iced or frosted. And there is some bleeding that happens, and this is the one that's coffee, so you can see it's slightly green tinted a few places. So that's the result. And then I added another wash of coffee to get it even darker. So it's not, you will have bleeding if you paint it wet into the part that should be the white roof, if you want the roof white. Of course, you might not. You might want it to look like gingerbread, unfrosted gingerbread, and then do like scallops of icing or different things like that. But I wanted the roofs not to take that much time. So I'm just going with the total frosted look. Now this one I did take a little bit of extra time with and gave this little gable end over the door, just for a variety in shape. And another thing you could do is add a chimney, which I have two more. I think I have two more, or at least one more in the oven. I could show you quick. I'll just film how to add a chimney if you want to do that. And I will film one more way to paint. Chimney is if you have a piece of batting, you just can roll up a little piece and stick it on with a little starch, and then you just take a little bit of fiber and connect it. If you don't have batting, I'll show you another way. And I will show you how to make it look like there's smoke coming out of it. Well, maybe that's not appropriate for the gingerbread house. I sometimes use cotton to look like a little puff of smoke, but maybe that wouldn't be very traditional to represent actual smoke. So, okay, I won't show you that, but I'll show you how to do it with something besides the batting. So you can use a little piece of cardboard or paper in just the same way, and you can also just do it with just a little twist of cotton fiber. I was going to show you this, which you can stick on with a little starch, or you can like just dab a little hot glue there and stick it on and then cover it in your cotton fiber. This is another really, my work table is so messy right now that I really am ending up with all kinds of weird things in my cotton. You literally just take a little clump and you just smush it on there, and then just kind of use your starch to make it into a shape. And see, you can see how I could just kind of leave that wispy as smoke, but I'll just smush it down to look like a chimney made out of gingerbread. So I will probably paint the sides of that when it's dry to be the gingerbread color of the house, and then just leave the top white. So yeah, adding a chimney is quite simple, and there are several ways you can do that. So if you decide to paint dry, which is what I would probably recommend, you may find that it doesn't cover completely in one coat. So you'll have to do 2 coats, and that is why I had moved to painting most things wet, if it's possible, because the glue and the starch mix kind of repel the pigment a little bit in some places where it's thicker, and so it will take a couple coats in some cases to get a more even finish. Okay, now it occurs to me that I had questions when I switched to the starch and shared that video. I've had questions like, well, will it attract bugs and things like that? And I don't think it's going to attract more bugs than anything. It's already a fiber, and bugs are attracted. They're just around, and they're looking for different materials that they can use or consume, or whatever it is they need. This little ladybug is very taken with these houses, but I promise you that I haven't seen any ladybugs, and I've been, everything I've made in the last 2 months has had the starch. I've had all kinds of things sitting out here every day, and I haven't seen ladybugs crawling on any of my little birds, and just nothing. They have been on the table, kind of interested in the lights, or they especially like to get in my coffee, which I find them drowned in there sometimes. I've not noticed them doing this on anything, so I really don't think she's being attracted to the starch. I don't know what it is. She maybe really just she just likes the look of these little houses. I just think she's charmed by these little gingerbread houses. I don't know. I really can't tell you, but I promise I have these starch, these figurines that are made with starch all over this room, and there are no ladybugs on any of the others. So I really can't explain what the attraction is today for this particular ladybug, but I really don't think that it's going to be something that attracts bugs, and I've not had any other bugs appearing on my table. We just do get a lot of ladybugs in here this time of the year, and for whatever reason, and I really do think I didn't have any on my table until I put the fairy lights back behind. So I think that's what drew them here. If I could say one thing, it was that was what changed when I noticed that a little colony of them had formed. And what I want to say about these, as I'm doing this last little bit, I'm just dabbing some starch on the roofs and using my mica flakes. And I know you can hear the guys outside, I'm sure. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to get a chance to shoot when they're not here, because it'll be dark by the time they leave. So I wish I could, they're having a very animated conversation about something. Anyway, what I wanted to say is, what I have noticed as I've painted quite a few of these is I really liked kind of more the honey brown, lighter color brown gingerbread. And so I painted several of these a little bit lighter. But then, of course, and I should have anticipated this, but the white accents don't show up as well on that. Like here's the coffee one, and it's just a little bit harder to, and I struggled a few places because there was mica stuck to it. But it just is a little bit harder to appreciate the accent white colors. When it's a little bit lighter brown, it just doesn't set it off as well. So this one that I did, the very darkest, probably is the best to look at least from a distance, because there's just a lot of contrast there. And so I would say to keep that in mind if you're making some, that you might want to go a little bit darker with the brown than what it would be if you actually baked one. And that will just give you a little bit easier time when you paint your white design on, and having it be visible and not having to go over it twice. So I was trying to think, what would I recommend for the easiest thing to paint, and I think it would be little dots. I think that really does, if you don't have a steady hand, that helps you a little bit, because you can just, you can come in for the dot, and you don't have to hold your hand steady to get a line, and they don't have to be perfect. They're just giving you a little dot of contrast to your dark brown color. You can do the dots lots of different ways, so I think dots are a good way to go. For just a little. I think the scallops do okay too. The stripes or straight lines I don't recommend. Let's see, where is that one? Because it's really hard to get them uniform, and they just don't take very well onto the cotton. So I think you're better off with smaller things like polka dots or little circles, little hearts. And don't worry about it being perfect. Don't get hung up on that. It doesn't need to be. These are meant to look rustic. They are not little perfect things, and it's very hard. I mean, most of us, if we made a gingerbread house, it would look quite rustic. For those of us who don't have a lot of experience piping and decorating things, they don't look particularly slick, you know what I mean? They're not going to look polished. They're just going to look homemade, and that's kind of the charm of them. So don't worry about having it come out just perfect. It's just kind of, it's sort of a nod to something that lots of us have good memories of. What would be really, I'm just having an idea. What would be really fun is if you have some essential oils, if you have cinnamon or clove or any of the spicy ones, add that to a few drops to your starch, your cornstarch mix, and then they'll have or you could even, I wish I had done this, but I think you could actually paint with some cinnamon. Gosh, I wish I'd tried that. I don't know why I don't have ideas till the end, but you could actually, I think, brush some cinnamon in while you're brushing on your brown paint. And because there are, you can make the cinnamon dough to make cinnamon ornaments. So I'm kind of thinking along those lines, but so that's kind of, anyway, just be playful and let it be nostalgic, and keep things sweet and light and simple, and don't stress about it. That's not the point. So have some fun, make a bug friend, put one on the top of a gift, just make a little village of them, and you could display them on some spools or something. So just be playful, and just give yourself a little time to have some fun and do something sweet. So that's why I'm sharing these, because I do think they're fun, and I love tiny things. I think they bring a lot of us joy, and in the making and the giving and the receiving, just all around. So thank you so much for all your kindness. I'm really behind on comments. I've read some of them. I have not replied to most of them, because I've just put out so many more videos lately than what I normally do, so I haven't caught up with all of that. But I do appreciate all of your comments and suggestions, and the sweet things you say, and sharing about your own making experiences. All of that, please do keep coming with that, and I will try to catch up on everything over kind of the holiday break. And anyway, Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for your support. Wishing you happy holidays and happy making. What I think they would be nice for is, of course, to go on a mini tree, but as a little gift topper. I think they would be so sweet that way. So put a little, wire, punch a little hole with your large needle. I would need to punch it right where I need to name her, but right here. And then just put in a little loop of wire, or you could actually punch all the way through if you wanted to, all the way through the bottom, and string some twine if you don't want to do the wire loop. But anyway, I think those would look lovely on the top of a little gift or on the back of a swan. If I can back up my camera a little bit, and like this one. So I think that looks nice. So they would look great on the back of a bird that you make. They're just, I don't know, they're just a fun little